candidates were called America's favorite sons: Andrew Jackson, John Quincy Adams, William Crawford, Secretary of Treasury, Henry Clay, father of the American system.
And they were all Democratic Republicans. Flashback. Ella, please.
Henry Clay was a Mohawk, voted for the War of 1812, famous for the American system, and a great compromised over slavery. John Quincy Adams gained Florida in Adams' Onis Treaty. Defended Andrew Jackson in Florida and wrote the Monroe Doctrine, was considered the greatest Secretary of State ever. Crawford was from the South, and he believed in the same policies of Jefferson regarding the Constitution.
Please note, for John Quincy Adams, considered the greatest Secretary of State ever. Obviously, everything like that is arguable, but just keeping that in mind. And we took a look at these numbers yesterday. And let's answer the questions once again. Who won the most votes, Bryson?
Jackson.
Popular votes. Who won the most electoral votes, everybody? Jackson. The problem was Jackson did not win what, Amy? The majority of the Electoral College. Yes, he did not win the majority of the Electoral College. So following the 12th Amendment, who decides the winner of the election? Sarah? House of Representatives. Okay. Jesse, go ahead, please.
North Oregon, a deal was made behind closed doors. In return for police supporting John Quincy Adams,
and do you know what position Clay was given? Something he wanted. Go ahead. Jesse? Secretary of State. Ella, go ahead, please.
So, would that same thing still happen today regarding the corrupt funding? Wouldn't that be like a conflict of interest because I was in the election and then he was also the Speaker of the House?
The first part of your question, I don't think so, because I think the 20th Amendment actually prohibits that from happening. However, I have thought about that. If you would have more than two candidates, what if we have a third party candidate and no one wins the majority, like let's say in the next election? I don't have a good answer for you. I won't say that it can't happen again. Okay. Now, elections pretty much since this time have only had the two party candidates, but it doesn't mean it can happen. That's a good question. The second part, I would agree 100%. It's a conflict of interest, especially if you have someone that doesn't get the majority and they're in the top three and they might be the Speaker of the House. And if their party has the majority in the House, would they elect themselves? Yes, I would say yes to that. Obviously, the people on the other side would be hollering and screaming. Have we ever seen that in the last two presidential elections where there has been debate over who won, who didn't, things like that? So, yeah, I think you could have some of these same issues. Okay. Moving right along here. Sarah, will you read through this, please?
Clay and Jackson despised each other. Clay supported the American system, which increased the power of federal government. Jackson was the hero of the common man. When the Battle of New Orleans, he forwarded to the U.S. and the Revolutionary War veteran at age 13.
Okay, and all of that should sound familiar to you, okay? Except for maybe the hero of the common man, but everything else we've gone over. Just to remind you, he was a Revolutionary War veteran at age 13, lied about his age, and did serve. But Clay and Jackson did despise each other. Now, don't get me wrong, Jackson did not like John Quincy Adams either, even though John Quincy Adams supported him. But that said, Jackson's main target in this whole thing was Clay. I want to be crystal clear there, okay? Jackson did blame Henry Clay for this, among many other things, which we'll get to in the next chapter. Okay, presidency of John Quincy Adams. Who are the only father-son combinations to be president? Amy.
the Adams and
Good.
The Bushes.
Bush family, yes. Now, Benjamin Harrison and William Henry Harrison were grandfather, grandson. I will point that out, okay? The Roosevelts were cousins, okay, not father son. Teddy Roosevelt and Franklin. Now let's take a look at that at the bottom there. John Adams said to his son, John Quincy Adams, no man who had ever held the office of the presidency would congratulate a friend upon obtaining it. What does that mean? What's he saying to his son, Georgia?
He's saying like why did you like let Clay in to the to the Secretary of State like as soon as like you got president? Like he's like why? I don't know.
I think he did question that too. Yes,
Oh,
Bryson.
It was more like he's saying, "Why the heck did you do this? This is gonna be a bad idea. Take it from me. I already did it."
Yes, and John Adams had a miserable presidency. Maggie.
Yeah, I feel like he's like saying most people would be sending you like a congratulations card right now, but I've already gone through this and know that you don't want it.
You don't want it. Kind of wonder why anybody would want the job. Why there's no getting away from it. There's no going home at night, but just something to think about. Okay, so the new president is John Quincy Adams. Due to the corrupt bargain, who becomes president? Just said it. Gracie.
oh,
John Quincy Adams, yes. Who was his vice president? Anybody know that? Not Andrew Jackson. Okay, Google it. Why not? Let's take a break and Google it. Good. John C. Calhoun. I want you to know that. John C. Calhoun was his vice president. And that is very important because John C. Calhoun is from the South, and you have a Southerner as vice president. John C. Calhoun, he's from South Carolina. Rather than have you turn in your textbook, I'm going to answer that third question for you. What were his goals? Well, he had a lot of lofty goals, a lot of big goals. He wanted to expand the American system, for one thing. He wanted to support Manifest Destiny moving westward. And you know something else? He wanted to make the country kinder and gentler, solving issues. Everybody would be happy. Another era of good feeling. What does he actually accomplish? The answer, not much. Amy, what are you going to say there?
I was just gonna say just the improvements on like the internal system.
Say the last part, I'm sorry.
Just the improvements on the internal system.
Yeah, he was able to do a little bit of infrastructure, and I'll mention that in the next slide. Now, I don't know if you remember, but when we looked at John Adams' presidency, there were 6 paragraphs in your textbook about him. John Quincy Adams, there's about 6 paragraphs also. He doesn't get to do much at all. He has 4 years of misery. Should have listened to his father. 99% of the things he wanted to do didn't happen. Why do you think he didn't get to do a lot of the things he wanted to do? Like,
Because people were still like they still didn't really accept him.
yeah, especially the Jackson supporters. The Jackson supporters don't support him. But he has 4 years of misery. One thing he did accomplish, gaining money for canals and extended the national road, and we call that infrastructure. He did get to do that. But that's as far as we go. And that's really all I need you to know for him. Okay. We call that infrastructure. Money, canals, extended national road infrastructure. And that's really it. Okay, we're going to go to the end of his presidency already. How does he leave office? Well, bitter, upset, mad. You ready for this one? Doesn't stay around to see the next president inaugurated. Does that sound familiar? Why does that sound familiar? Go ahead.
Former President Trump was not too happy about the results of our last election, and I know like there were some traditions like showing the incoming president, like he did do like a lot of things with the Bidens, he just kind of like pieced out.
Yeah, exactly. Peace might even be a little bit of a strong word, right?
Well,
Although that's nice to think of it that way. I also want you to remember that's the way his dad left office. Left before Jefferson comes into office. Don't forget, his dad lost the election of 1800, the pivotal election. Okay? So he left office, did not stick around to see who would have been Andrew Jackson inaugurated. Bitter. Let's go to that next question. What office did John Quincy Adams hold before becoming president? What office? I just went over it a few minutes ago. It's not a trick question. I said write down this word. Gracie. Secretary of State. He was considered one of the greatest secretaries of state ever. Historians would never say that about his presidency, though. Now, I do want you to know that third question. What office did he hold after being president? Not the Supreme Court. That was Taft. Taft, the only president to go from being president to the Supreme Court. Adams is the only U.S. president that went from serving as president to serving in the House of Representatives. He served in the House of Representatives after being president. Getting ahead of myself. Now, we have had presidents who served in the House before being president, but not who served in the House after being president. And that fourth question is what I really want you to know. His legacy anybody want to take a shot at it? Word against might give it away. Go ahead. Slavery, yes. His legacy is actually as an abolitionist, where he became a fierce fighter against slavery. This really was the beginning at this time period of the abolitionist movement. Once slavery really started to expand, that's when people started to really make a big movement to end slavery, and obviously we're heading for a civil war. Now, let me be crystal clear. That does not mean people weren't opposed to slavery before. We already talked about after the Revolutionary War, many northern states ended slavery. Certainly the Quakers were opposed to slavery from the very beginning, before the war even happened, okay? So I'm not going to say this is the beginning of the abolitionist movement, but this is the beginning of the major abolitionist movement, okay? Just want to throw this out there. The Amistad has an all-star cast in it. Matthew McConaughey's in it. Anthony Hopkins is in it. Has anybody ever seen it by any chance? This is a story about slaves from Africa who were actually on their way to Central America. they got blown off course, probably by a hurricane. And they ended up, as you can see, they were on board a Spanish ship. They ended up in Long Island. They actually overtook their captives, okay, and tried to get back to Africa, but it didn't happen. So the slaves were actually arrested for assault and for attacking their captives, some of which were killed. When they came into Long Island, the question was, should they be slaves? Now, this is happening in 1839, so it's before, of course, the 13th Amendment. Now, that said, I want you to know this. Why am I mentioning this now? Anthony Hopkins actually plays the role of John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was actually the slaves' lawyer. He was actually the lawyer for the slaves. And I do want you to know that. Did win their freedom. He did win their freedom. And that was part of his legacy as an abolitionist. It's a very sad ending, though, because none of the slaves were able to go back to Africa, to their homelands. It didn't work out that way. Good movie, nonetheless. Very true to the history, the story, the Amistad. The ship is actually still in Long Island. You can actually tour the ship. Oh, wait a minute. I might be wrong there. Let me think about that a minute. Where did I see it? Was it in Long Island? Am I confusing that with the other? It might actually be in Boston Harbor. I know I was on it. Just don't remember where exactly it was. But nonetheless, John Quincy Adams was the lawyer for the slaves, the defender. Okay, so we got a test tomorrow. There's a Quizlet on Classroom. Invite you definitely to go back to the beginning of your handout, read through the American system, get familiar with those court cases, okay? 13 to 15, you already watched the link. We already took a look at that. And the end of the handout is review. Okay, so the election of 1828, I just want to mention this. Take a guess who wins. Good.
Jackson.
Andrew Jackson. And his supporters are going to make sure he wins this time. Okay? And yes, John Quincy Adams did not stick around for the party, so to speak. Okay, there's some information. Let me just run over this one again, or go over this one. What impact did the Adams-Onis Treaty have? That's the Florida Purchase Treaty. But again, keep in mind that was one of the keys to Manifest Destiny. Okay, securing our southern boundaries, we secure the northern boundary, and now we're pushing westward. Okay. The impact on women, you definitely want to think cult of domesticity. Okay. But also Lowell Mills. All right, keep that in mind. You see roles of women changing. Slavery, Nat Turner's Rebellion. Most of you probably didn't get a chance to watch that video, which is on Canvas, but please take a look at that. It's only a few minutes. Okay? All right. New inventions, interchangeable parts, the process of machine-made products. I didn't really emphasize this. Cities did increase in size. Labor unions, although they were not effective. Any questions on anything I just had up there? So we know where to find everything. Diplomatic nationalism, that's basically to make sure that this nationalistic feeling continues. And you saw that in court cases, federal government, okay, the American system as it was called, and of course Manifest Destiny, which is only going to get bigger. Okay, that's not going to be your essay question, but something to consider. The controversy of Nat Turner's Rebellion, spiritualism. He was a minister, the result, and there was definitely some controversy there. Slaves were in actually a tougher position because of it. All right, increased slave laws to control slaves, etc. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. All right, go ahead and hit the lights if you would. What I encourage you to do is take a look at the end of the handout. Page 8, I do want to go over in a few minutes, go over some key points of that, which most of you did get a chance to get finished with that. The Quizlet, and I did something a little bit different on Canvas this time. I scribbled down some answers to the review and put those on Canvas. Okay, so they're on there for you. If you can't read my handwriting, let me know, because I usually do in cursive. Okay, your time, take a look. Call out questions, raise your hand, whatever you need. We'll go over page 8.
Whoa.
Sounds important. Go ahead.